You know, Donald Trump came into office promising that he was going to turn this economy around, that he was going to create the golden age right here in the good old US of A. But what are we seeing instead? Whole bunch of chaos, whole bunch of uncertainty, and right now it seems like we're in this really strange holding pattern, right? Because Donald Trump came into office and implemented all of these insane tariffs, and then he walked back from those tariffs, and now we're kind of in this piecemeal pause with countries all across the globe. And then we've got Republicans in Congress fighting over their budget bill. It's an absolute disaster. It could kick millions of people off of their Medicaid just so we can give tax cuts to the wealthiest among us. And then on top of all that, we've got a whole bunch of blinking indicators suggesting that we might actually be heading towards a recession if these tariffs and the budget bill actually go into place. So what does the Trump administration do? Well, you got to send out the cleanup guy, right? So we've got Scott Bessent going on these Sunday shows, just making up a whole bunch of excuses for this administration. And let's go ahead and check out this first one, where he kind of just downplays that the United States of America, for the first time in its history, was just downgraded in its credit rating by Moody's Analytics. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
It says, quote, if the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is extended, which is our base case, it will add around $4 trillion to the deficit over the next decade. Several Republicans, Mr. Secretary, are citing similar concerns. Does the president's tax bill need to do more to address the nation's debt and deficit?
Well, Kristen, first of all, I think that Moody's is a lagging indicator. I think that's what everyone thinks of credit agencies. Larry Summers and I don't agree on everything, but he said that when they downgraded the U.S. in 2011. So it's a lagging indicator. And just like Sean Duffy said with our air traffic control system, we didn't get here in the past 100 days. It's the Biden administration and the spending that we have seen over the past 4 years. You know, we inherited 6.7% deficit to GDP, the highest when we weren't in a recession, not in a war, and we are determined to bring the spending down and grow the economy.
Yeah, so no big deal, guys. Moody's is no big deal. It's just a lagging indicator. Nothing to worry about. These people know for damn sure that if Biden was in office and we were downgraded by Moody's Analytics, they would be losing their damn minds. And rightfully so. This Moody's Analytics rating, it's going to make our debt more expensive. We are looked at or viewed as a less reliable investment. So foreign investors are going to want to be paid more to actually hold our debt. So it is a big deal. But Scott Bessent tries to say, no, not a big deal at all. Nothing to worry about. Actually, it's all Biden's fault, which is what this administration does every single time they are in front of a camera. It's Biden, 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 Biden. Now, look, I am willing to say that Biden played a role into where we are now, but so has Donald Trump. So has the last, 4 decades worth of presidents. This has been an ongoing issue that nobody has stepped up to address, and now we are in the situation that we are in. But to think that Biden is the sole culprit here is absolutely insane. He was far more fiscally responsible than Donald Trump. And actually, Scott Bessent was asked about, well, Donald Trump added nearly $8 trillion to our debt. What do you got to say about that?
But under President Trump's first administration, he added $8 trillion to the nation's debt in his first term. So there's plenty of blame to go around.
No. But let's review. We were in the rescue portion of COVID. The Biden administration was in the recovery portion. And Kristen, it would have been, if not for Senators Manchin and Sinema, who were no longer in the Democratic caucus, it would have been 4 or 5 trillion more.
Yeah, so Scott Bessent knows he's full of shit here. If you remove COVID, Donald Trump still added more to our debt than almost every other president in history. Donald Trump was probably the most fiscally irresponsible president that our country has ever seen. He did those Trump Tax and Jobs Act, or whatever the actual piece of legislation was called. He did a whole bunch of tax cuts, except he didn't pair that with any spending deficits or cuts, right? So we've got less revenue coming in. We've got more revenue going out, which is going to add huge sums of money to our national debt. That's exactly what Donald Trump did. Now they're trying to push these tax cuts to be permanent, which is an absolute disaster for this country. And they're trying to play it off as though, oh, well, we're going to stimulate so much economic growth that it's going to make up for all of these tax cuts that we're doing. That is what they said the first time, and that is exactly what did not happen. Donald Trump and his administration do not care about the deficit. They do not care about the national debt. All they care about is getting what they want now and then pawning it off onto the next guy. This is how Donald Trump operates, and everybody should remember that. Let's go ahead and move on to where he is asked about Walmart, saying that they are indeed going to have to raise costs because of these tariffs.
But let me ask you about Walmart, this big news from Walmart. It says it will start raising prices on its consumers, Mr. Secretary, as early as this month due to the tariffs. Now, President Trump out with a very stern warning on social media saying Walmart, quote, should eat the tariffs, adding the company made far more than expected last year. Is the president asking American companies to be less profitable?
I was on the phone with Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, yesterday, and Walmart is, in fact, going to, as you describe it, eat some of the tariffs that, just as they did in 18, 19, and 20. The other thing, though, that we are seeing that Doug passed along to me, that with their consumer, the single most important thing is the gasoline price. And gasoline prices have collapsed under President Trump. So we are seeing that. The other thing that will happen, that is a direct tax cut for consumers. Then the transportation costs are also a big input. So let's see what happens.
Look, I have no love for Walmart, but just think about what is actually going on here. You've got an administration, you got Donald Trump, who is so infatuated with tariffs. He doesn't know how trade deficits work. He doesn't know how actual tariffs work. He goes ahead, he implements them against all advice. Every economist came out and said, this is a terrible idea. This is going to wreck our economy. This is going to make prices go higher. But Donald Trump went forward through them, and he went forward with them anyway. And now you've got an administration saying, well, actually, maybe Walmart actually needs to eat some of those costs. Just think about how twisted that is. Aren't we supposed to be a free market capitalist society? You've got a president of the United States saying, or dictating, or, maybe nudging Walmart to actually eat some of these tariff costs, which also goes against their central premise, right? Donald Trump has been telling us for months, or even maybe years now, that tariffs, they're paid by the country that we're importing from. So this isn't a tax increase on the American consumer. These people are just full of shit. Donald Trump has absolutely no idea what he is doing. Scott Bessent absolutely knows better. And to think that we have an administration who is meddling in private businesses like this, and he's a Republican, I mean, it's just absolutely wild. I mean, if a Biden administration was doing this, if another Democrat was doing this, they would say that we are trying to implement price controls, that we are trying to have too much sway in the private markets, and they would be ripping our heads off. But since it's Trump, I guess it's A-okay, right? So then he's asked about, well, what does the tariff landscape look like moving forward then?
President Trump, while he was on the foreign trip, said that countries should expect letters from you, from Secretary Lutnick, saying this is what the tariff rate is going to be. Mr. Secretary, does that effectively mean that these negotiations with other countries are over? And how high should they expect tariffs to go? Above 10%?
This means that they're not negotiating in good faith. They are going to get a letter saying, here is the rate. So I would expect that everyone would come and negotiate in good faith.
You expect that rate, though, that you would slap on any country that you think is not negotiating in good faith to be above 10%?
Well, I think that it would be the April 2nd level. Some countries were at 10%, some were substantially higher. And the negotiating leverage that President Trump is talking about here is if you don't want to negotiate, then it will spring back to the April 2nd level.
They really have got to, Scott Bessent needs to stop doing these appearances. He is so absolutely terrible at this. He's stumbling over his words. You can tell that he is just lying here. But just imagine, have they not learned their lesson? They're saying that tariffs might spring back to the April 2nd levels. Do they not remember what happened on April 2nd? Donald Trump used this weird-ass formula to come up with these astronomically high tariffs, like over 100% in a lot of cases, and then he implemented those tariffs, and a few hours later, he blinked because they were so devastating to the economy, to our markets. And Scott Bessent knows that. And now he's threatening to go back to those levels if these people or these countries are supposedly not cooperating in good faith. These people have no idea what they are doing. They are not looking out for the better interests of the American people. They do not care if the prices at the grocery store go up for your average American. They are just following Donald Trump wherever he wants to go. Congress needs to step up and take this tariff power back from Donald Trump because he has only proved that he is a delusional maniac who has absolutely no idea how any of this shit works. And I'll show you this one last clip here because I thought it was funny. Here he is being asked about Donald Trump accepting that $400 million plane from Qatar.
President Trump's, quite frankly, own allies in expressing concerns about this plane that Qatar has offered to President Trump. They are saying it sends the wrong message. It sends the wrong message and raises concerns ethically, raises concerns constitutionally, and about security. Why is it appropriate for the president to accept a $400 million jet from Qatar?
Well, it's not the president accepted, it'd be the United States government. And Senator Mullins said this weekend that the talks had actually begun under the Biden administration. So, but Kristen, what I can tell you is I think this is a off-ramp for many in the media not to acknowledge what an incredible trip this was. That President Trump has brought back trillions of investments in the United States. Every stop we made, the enthusiasm in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in the United Arab Emirates to invest in the United States, that they want to push more and more the funds here. And if we go back to your initial question on the Moody's downgrades, who cares?
Yeah, guys, who cares? Who cares if Moody's Analytics downgraded our credit rating? No big deal. Donald Trump, he's not accepting a plane from Qatar. That was all Joe Biden put all that stuff into motion. It was just Trump who's going to get the benefit. Does anybody buy this shit? I dug into the claim to whether or not Joe Biden was actually in talks with Qatar to try to accept this $400 million plane. That's just a load of shit. This is not true. This is just something that Mark Wayne Mullen made up, and now Scott Bessent is repeating it on live TV because he, doesn't have anything better to say? This is a $400 million plane from somebody who funds terrorism with Hamas, with Hezbollah, anti-Israel funding those types of terrorist groups. And you've got a president of the United States saying that, it's not going to me, it's going to the American military, when we know that's a load of shit because right before his term in office ends, he's going to be shifting the ownership of that plane to the presidential foundation in his name. So it's basically going to be his plane. These people are just unserious people. You've got an economy that is in limbo right now, right? We've got all of these tariffs that might go back into effect in less than 90 days. We've got Donald Trump threatening other tariffs. You got Scott Bessent threatening that, we might go back to April 2nd, Liberation Day tariffs if you guys don't cooperate in good faith. And don't worry about Donald Trump accepting anything from Qatar. He's bringing all of this investment back to the United States, which is also a load of crap. Many of the things that he has announced as far as these investment goes were already things that were in place before he even came into office that occurred under the Biden administration. They're just unserious people. They're lying to you every single step of the way. Our economy is kind of in chaos right now, where there's a whole bunch of uncertainty. Businesses do not know how to plan. We've got these tariffs that are looming, and nobody knows what to do. Consumer sentiment is at historical low levels, I believe, at this time. It's just all a mess. And then we've got like I said, the Republicans in Congress, they're battling over this budget bill, which is going to add another $4 or $5 trillion to our national debt while kicking millions of people off of their Medicaid just so we can give more tax cuts to people like Scott Bessent and Donald Trump and his family and his billionaire buddies. It is all gross. Donald Trump was supposed to come into office and turn the economy around. You guys remember? Even though he was handed an economy that was an envy of the world at the time. We recovered after COVID better than any of our counterparts. And Donald Trump came into office and he just blew it up because he is such an incompetent buffoon and he has absolutely no idea what the fuck he's doing. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just shovels shit for Donald Trump every single day. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to hit that subscribe button. It is free. And if you guys want to see how an ICE raid got absolutely out of control over in Massachusetts and a teenage girl was slammed into the pavement, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.